talk about another shortstop who is now injured, unfortunately, for the Boston Red Sox. Trevor Story underwent a form of Tommy John surgery?
It was basically Tommy John surgery, I guess. I don't know why. I don't know what exactly it was. A Tommy John adjacent surgery. I don't know.
UCL something. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months. And when I was writing the article, the over under win total article, I took the Red Sox's under. Because I just don't believe they won 78 games last year. Did they get better? I don't think so. And then you lose Trevor Story. So the big question is, what are they going to do? We can go through the options of a free agency. We can talk about some potential trade partners. But right now, Trevor Story will not be in the Red Sox lineup starting now 4 to 6 months. We don't know when he'll be back. But Chaim Bloom came out and said, we can't bank on him coming back. We're assuming, I guess, to take a guess before the All-Star break, he comes back. But how healthy is his arm? We saw Harper, he had to DH. How is he going to DH? Is he going to only be able to play second? The Red Sox don't have a shortstop arm.
Well, that's the craziest part. It's even before all this, it was like, yo, you're thinking about Trevor Story at short, because we knew he had some arm issues. It was very clear that his arm was affecting him. And it seemed like it was kind of a stretch to even consider him at shortstop before he went down now with this surgery. And I think he tried to, rest it, get it right, and tried to throw again now, and it just wasn't right. So ultimately gets a surgery, but that time in between now cuts into his season here. And I think they're lucky to get him back by the All-Star break. And I think, as you said, Chaim Bloom said they can't even really plan for him. They can't assume that he's going to be back this season. It would be malpractice to plan for him to be there and not set up some sort of alternative plan. What's interesting is now they're going to play Kike Hernandez there, who's played less than 20 games. He's played less than 20 games there over the last couple of years, and he has his own injury issues.
Not only that, they cannot do that, because what you're doing is you're moving off of a Gold Glove caliber center fielder to put him at short. So not only are you risking shortstop defense, you then leave center field defense open, which is
correct,
as important as the shortstop defense, because you're the captain of the outfield. So you're lessening 2 positions instead of just getting a shortstop. I've heard that being floated, Kike to short. You cannot let that happen. You can't.
Yeah. And then now you look at the middle infield situation. And what is it going to be? Christian Arroyo and who?
Marcelo Meyer?
Just call him up. Just send him up there and let him struggle. They DFA Jeter Downs, who they could probably use now. I know he was a disaster last year, but man, at least it's somebody that's been there and they could use now. Well, he's on the Nationals, and you look at the outfield situation. If they do move Kike there, it's going to be Jarren Duran. He was a disaster in the outfield and at the plate last season. Even got booed by the Red Sox fans for the way he was playing the game. Christian Arroyo can hold down second base, probably can't play shortstop. They have to make a trade. I think that's really what it boils down to, right, Peter? And we've seen reports of them, calling the Marlins on Joey Wendell, Miguel Rojas. There was just a report today, as we're recording this, that they were maybe interested in Alberto Mondesi, which is also comical because that guy can't stay healthy either. So you're going to get him, and what happens when he goes down? Now the season started, and teams probably aren't going to part with their middle infielders. Maybe they could go get, Elvis Andrus. And I think ultimately that's probably what I do, unless it's part of a larger deal with the Marlins, because that's the interesting thing, is it ties in with the pitching conversations that the Marlins and the Red Sox have reportedly had. You could throw in a Joey Wendell or Miguel Rojas. That helps them. But if I'm the Red Sox, I'm not giving up any assets for a rental at shortstop. I would just go get Elvis Andrus. I mean, he was very fine last year. He was a 3.5 win player.
Yeah, but that's too easy. And we're a podcast. This is supposed to be good radio. So yes, they can sign Elvis Andrus to a 1-2-year deal, makes them better, and it solves that problem. Good, great. End of podcast. Nope. Let's continue. You are a Marlins fan, and you cannot tell me that you're down there in Florida right now cooking up mocks that includes a Miguel Rojas and a Pablo Lopez over to the Red Sox. So let's start there. Chaim Bloom, Kim Ng, they get on the phone, and Chaim Bloom says, Kim, we'd like to get Miguel Rojas and Pablo Lopez. I'm Chaim, you're Kim Ng. Who do you want in return?
Obviously, the reports were that the Marlins tried on Casas. Not happening. Pablo.
Can you explain that, like why that's not happening? Because I don't think people understand what the potential reckoning of a Tristan Casas could do to a lineup.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, well, first of all, first round pick who has just been kind of celebrated before Marcelo Meyer is like that next like big franchise piece, right? And his mash through the minors, it just has that face of the franchise moxie. And when it comes to his bat, I mean, we're talking 30 home run power, high on base percentage, pretty good bat to ball skills for the kind of power that he has, and he can play pretty good first base. This is a guy that's big league ready now that you're expecting to be in the middle of your order for a long time. So to me, if you're trading him for, a pitcher when your lineup's already kind of meh, you're just taking one step forward, one step back. Doesn't make sense to me. So that's a guy that's not going anywhere. It seems like the Red Sox might be more willing to part with Ceddanne Rafaela, who's on the Just Baseball Top 100 list towards the 70-80 range. Phenomenal center fielder that the Marlins could really use, but the Marlins are in this fantasy land. I was talking about this with Jack, where they want to upgrade their team for 2023. So they're going to pass maybe on somebody like Rafaela and try to get somebody that's going to help them next year. I think that's dumb. And personally, I could see the Marlins circling back here, meeting up with the Red Sox and saying, give me Ceddanne Rafaela and a couple other pieces, and we'll package, somebody like Pablo Lopez and a Rojas or Wendell. And it just seems like a no-brainer to me there. I think that's got to be the easiest deal to make for the Red Sox. You help your pitching, you get that stopgap at shortstop. And ultimately, I'm sure the Red Sox want control, because that's the one thing Chaim Bloom said, like we want 4 or 5 years of control, which would be Edward Cabrera, which would be Trevor Rogers. But I don't think the Marlins are trading one of those guys for a Ceddanne Rafaela. It's got to be Casas. So you're kind of have a game of chicken here between Kim Ng and Chaim Bloom.
And Ceddanne Rafaela, you like him a lot as a prospect, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, where would you rank him? Like, kind of give me a tier, maybe a well-known prospect that you think he's kind of similar in for our fans who maybe aren't as in depth at the prospect world.
Yeah, so he's like in the 70 to 80 range. So I would say in our top 100 list, that's a good question. I would say like he's right on the cusp of being one of the better outfield prospects in baseball, but just hasn't quite done it enough yet. So I would say like tier 2. If tier 1 is all of those like almost untouchable guys, he's like middle tier 2, which is why the Red Sox are kind of dangling him.
Yeah. So he's good, but he's not untouchable. But he's a guy that if the Marlins got him, they'd be very excited in a couple of years. And at the same time, the Red Sox, they can trade from that in order to get that shortstop and to get that pitcher who they desperately need, because we're talking about how shortstop is the problem. But again, that's why I'm looking at the Red Sox under team total. You move Garrett Whitlock into the rotation. Love him as a pitcher. I think he's a good starter, but you then remove him from the bullpen. Chris Sale, how many innings are we going to get? We have no idea. Nick Pivetta just wasn't really that good. Josh Winkowski, Cutter Crawford. Like, these are just not guys that I'm confident in. And a guy like Michael Wacha gave them great innings last year. Yeah. Like, even Rich Hill gave them good innings. And now they are without those two. I just said Rich Hill gave them great innings. That was an over-exaggeration. But he threw the baseball better than those below replacement level pitchers that you're just going to scoop up off waivers. So I personally think that the Red Sox are in trouble this season. I have them finishing in last place. Now, it's not over. They can do a lot of things to make them better. That's why these are early looks. I haven't bet anything yet. If the Red Sox come out and grab a big-time starting pitcher in a trade, or then make a big trade for a shortstop, or even get Elvis Andrus, I could have a different tone. The offseason is not over. But as we're sitting here today on January 12th, I am worried about the Red Sox, and I have them finishing in last place. Is that fair?
I'm in on them on last place. I really think so. While I'm disappointed that the Orioles haven't addressed the starting pitching situation, and it's funny, I do wonder if the Orioles might be trying to get involved here, because if the Red Sox do pony up and say, hey, and I'm not saying it has to be Casas, it could be a larger deal here, but they are able to pry one of Trevor Rogers or Edward Cabrera away, which I think they should be targeting, because ultimately I don't think they're competing next year regardless. And you should be trying to get 3-4 years of control of a starting pitcher, not 2 with Pablo, unless they think that they can extend him. I wonder if the Orioles will, try to outbid them, because do you want the Red Sox to go to the Marlins and go get one of those arms that you could have, and I don't get why the Orioles haven't done it yet. But regardless, as these teams stand now, if the Red Sox have to roll Emmanuel Valdez out there, who they got for Christian Vasquez at the deadline from the Astros, I like Valdez, but that's a guy that's not really quite big league ready, and they might have to roll him out there. Like, there's like experimenting happening at this point. If they don't make some moves, I expect them to do something, but I don't expect it to be great. And if they get a Miguel Rojas, or if they get a Kyle Farmer type, Alberto Mondesi, is that changing your prediction? No way, right? No way.
Alberto Mondesi, when he's on the field, can be electric. If he plays 162 games, he can steal 100 bases.
Yes.
He has power. He has pop. But Red Sox fans, go look at the games played. It's not there. And it's Byron Buxton squared. It's everything you think about an injury-prone player, that is Alberto Mondesi. Is that the stopgap guy? It can't be. If you are a team where, for example, like the Yankees, in a way, adding an Alberto Mondesi would somewhat make sense, even though they have all these prospects and they have IKF, but they have so many different options. So if you get a Mondesi and he blows up, he could play third. That would make sense. The Red Sox, when they need a guy who could play 150 games, there's your issue. That's why that never really made sense to me. And they'd have to trade him. He's not available. It's not like, if they just could sign Mondesi.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Maybe you don't give him that much money and you try, but you have to give up pieces for him.
Yep.
And the Royals are going to see the talent on the field when he plays and probably want a decent prospect. And you may not get what you think you're getting based off this 60-game sample that he gives us every year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But, they're not going to just trade him just to trade him, right? So they might as well just roll him out there next year and see what can happen and then maybe trade him later. So that's the thing. If you're the Red Sox, I would be going for Andrus or trying to make a lesser deal happen. But again, you have to be honest with yourself. And that's the big thing with the Red Sox is I feel like they haven't been honest with themselves at all this offseason as to who they are, what they can be. And that's why I wouldn't be surprised if they go and make a trade, because I really think that they live in this alternate universe where they think a lineup of Yoshida, Kike Hernandez, Rafael Devers, Justin Turner, Alex Verdugo, Tristan Casas, Christian Arroyo, Reese McGuire, and Jarren Duran, which is how Roster Resource has it right now, can compete in the American League East. It can't. And that's not even going to the bullpen and the rotation, though they did improve the bullpen a little bit. If I were them, I think this Story situation is enough for me to say, hey, we'll pick up a guy, like an Andrus and give it our best shot, but we're not going to trade any assets and impact our future for next season unless it makes sense and it's a control for control swap. I don't see why the Red Sox should really pretend like they have a shot next year, especially now that Story is hurt. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Another AL East team that got a little bit better by adding Brandon Belt on a 1-year deal worth about $9.3 million. Yeah. At first, I thought, well, are they just going to platoon him with Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? I still like the deal, but then I realized they need a DH. Is Danny Jansen going to be the full-time DH? No, you need him to catch because Alejandro Kirk is not going to catch 162 games. Of course not. No catcher does. So you need Danny Jansen there. He's probably the best backup catcher in all of baseball. So you needed a DH. And Danny Jansen, they could do a platoon. Danny Jansen against lefties, Brandon Belt against righties. And Brandon Belt, another guy who hasn't been able to stay on the field all that often, but relieving him from playing the field, all you got to do is come to the ballpark and hit. And this guy can hit. 2021, 160 WRC plus, that's 60% better than league average. He was a monster. It's just about staying on the field. So I commented, steal. Do you think it's a steal? I thought it was a great move for the Jays.
I absolutely think it was a steal. Yes, of course he struggles to stay healthy, and that's been the issue. But when he's been on the field, it's not like his game has been diminished. If anything, it's been as good as ever. Well, his 2021 season, where he only played 97 games, he set his career high in homers. He had 29. So we're talking about a guy that if you can keep him on the field, I think he could be really good. He tried to play through an injury last year, and that's where we saw the game diminished a little bit. But
Yeah.
I just don't think you go from career high in homers to, the year after that, just totally losing it. I think he tried to play through an injury, and it wasn't there for him. And he ultimately missed the season. But I think he can bounce back. I think it's very clear that this guy can't be in the field that much. And it's very clear that trying to play him every day is probably not going to go well for his body at this stage of his career. But I also think it's clear that he found something, right? He was unbelievable in the 2020 season. He was unbelievable before getting hurt in 2021 and then played hurt in 2022. So putting him in the right role, keeping him healthy is the Blue Jays wanted a lefty bat, right? We've been hearing about them. We've talked about it on the podcast. When are they going to get their lefty bat? Now they got 3 of them. Now, Kevin Kiermaier is, more about the glove, but he is a guy who hits from the left side. Then you get a Dalton Varsho, who's a great lefty batter, a very good one. And then you get Brandon Belt, who I think if you use him properly is a phenomenal lefty bat to add to the fold here. And the way I look at it, Peter, is would you rather have Cavan Biggio or Brandon Belt? Because I feel like Brandon Belt is going to be taking those Cavan Biggio at bats this year and probably doing more with them.
Yeah, and then you have Santiago Espinal being your utility guy. So while the Blue Jays are getting better, not just on the field, but I think in the clubhouse, right? The Blue Jays, I feel like their issue has been they aren't sure how to get to that next level.
They're
young. They have all this talent. They have George Springer, who is that, he's a World Series champion, but that's it. You go through the rest of their roster, nobody's won anything. And it's not anyone's fault. It's a young nucleus. You even have Manoah at the top of the rotation. Gosman, he's never won anything. Barrios, these guys have never won anything. Like even a Chris Bassett now hasn't won anything. But adding a guy who's been there, done that, adding another one to the fold in the clubhouse, I think is also worth the money. Like even if Brandon Belt's injured and maybe he's just sitting in the clubhouse, like giving guys tips, the tutelage to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., like all of these little things all around made it a steal for me. I thought he could get a 2-year deal worth $25 million. I wouldn't have been surprised if that came across the ticker on MLB Network or on Twitter, but instead 1 year at $9 million to the Blue Jays, all around great deal.
I'm a big fan of it. Now I ask you, this Blue Jays team's good. And we're going to get more into the predictions for the season and everything like that as we get closer. But, the Blue Jays, I feel like answered a lot of the questions that we had, right? I mean, can they round out that rotation a bit more? Look, it's not perfect, but it's definitely better. Can they get those lefty bats and really figure out how to balance out the lineup a bit more? They did that too. Yankees are going to be the team to beat. We know that. That's the team to beat in the AL East. But did the Blue Jays do enough for you to be looking behind your back as a Yankee fan?
Oh, always. I'm always looking behind my back.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rays,
a little bit extra now with the Blue Jays.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always looking behind as a Yankee fan. Like those, I mean, the Rays and the Blue Jays are as good at teams as any teams in the American League. Like the Rays now, when healthy with McClanahan, Glasnow, Rasmussen, Springs, that lineup with Warner healthy. And just to your point about the Blue Jays rotation getting better, that's the only way I disagree. And I was writing that in my article because yes, they add Chris Bassett, but Chris Bassett might be a better pitcher than Ross Stripling. But will he replicate a 3.04 ERA in 131 innings? Like these questions, people tend to forget about those. It's like Chris Bassett is better than Ross Stripling, but they won 93 games with Ross Stripling pitching very well. Like those innings don't disappear. At the same time, what are we going to get from Barrios? What are we going to get from Kikuchi? We expect them to be better, but we can't guarantee it. So did the Blue Jays get better enough to be over 94.5 wins? I had them at 94 wins. So I took the under because I picked every single team. I couldn't just pass. So for that one, I'm not going to bet on the under, but I didn't think that they got so much better that they are a 97 win team where I think the Yankees are going to be around.
Yeah.
So I still have the Yankees finishing first, but if the Rays are fully healthy, I still think that the Rays will have a better team than the Blue Jays will. I really do.
And that's why the American League East is going to be
so good. That's why when you ask, my looking behind my back, I've been looking behind my back. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees finished third. Like I wouldn't like it. And I would be moderately shocked, but I wouldn't be over the moon if it went Blue Jays, Rays, Yankees, and the Yankees won 91 games. The Rays won 92 and the Blue Jays won 95. Wouldn't be shocked.
I think they're all going to be right around there, man. And I'm interested to see if they hold on to Kevin Biggio, because talking about how
Red Sox
Belt fills that role in a little bit. Yeah, but I wonder if they could flip Biggio for a reliever, do something like that. I do like that the bullpen has been addressed a little bit. The Eric Swanson addition was nice. The bullpen as a whole is a little bit better. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the Rays could end up being better than the Jays. So it's going to be really fun to see this 3-team race here. One other signing that I thought was really, or two other signings. We have a couple more.
Breaking news. The Dodgers have traded for Miguel Rojas from the Miami Marlins. I'm trying to find the prospect right now, but Miguel Rojas is heading to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Funny enough. I'm trying to find. I think it's for
Jacob Amaya. Holy crap.
Jacob Amaya. What are your thoughts? Initial thoughts?
Great job by the Marlins. This is so funny because knock Rojas off. If the Red Sox need a shortstop now from the Marlins, it's going to have to be Wendell, and I doubt that the Marlins move Wendell. So now even more so, they've got to kind of adjust what they're looking for here. Initial thoughts on this? Amaya's an older prospect, 24 years old, but bat to ball guy, and that's what the Marlins have been seeking. Middle infielder. They need guys like that, just higher floor prospects. Amaya's pretty darn good, given what they're giving up here with Miguel Rojas. What's really interesting is Rojas came up with the Dodgers, and ultimately, they didn't really think much of him, and he was kind of an overlooked guy, and got an opportunity with the Marlins. I'm very interested in one thing though. On that show that he hosts, the Chris Rose rotation he has with Chris Rose, he mentioned some like underlying beef he had with Clayton Kershaw. And when he homered off of him, he stayed in the box until it landed. And he said he can't talk about why he has that beef. Now I'm really interested to see how that works, because now they're going to be sharing a clubhouse. I will say it's been an interesting kind of character arc with Miguel Rojas, going from like that kind of almost Mr. Marlin Jr. Everybody loved him. Like that's the guy that's really all about the fish, to a guy that I'll call a spade here. The Marlins wanted to get out of there. Like he wasn't good for the clubhouse. They thought he was actually hurting clubhouse chemistry. Pretty wild to see that arc. And I'm also just wondering why the hell, just process this part of it. Why did the Dodgers even want him?
Well, they need a shortstop. I mean, Gavin Lux is their plan right now, but he's more of a second baseman. Like he hasn't proved that he can play shortstop. Now you can allow Chris Taylor to move around. So I think their plan is it might be Rojas at short and Lux at second opening day.
It's got to be, because that's the one thing Rojas gives you is a great glove. And for those that are listening that don't know much on Rojas, look, he's not going to hit. Dodgers don't need him to hit. He is a phenomenal defender. I don't know how he's such a good defender, because he's not like a freak athlete, but my goodness, he's a vacuum. He's got a great arm. He moves well. He was one of the best defensive shortstops last year, the year before that, and the year before that. Like he is really good. So the Dodgers get really good defense now in a season where, we're going to see, I think we've talked about it, the shift limitations may be a bit overstated, but it still puts a lot more importance on your defense up the middle. And, now they get a really, really good glove, one of the better defensive shortstops in baseball. So I get it, I guess, from that perspective. Take some pressure off of Lux and let him just keep hitting. Now, don't make him worry about playing shortstop for one of the best teams in baseball. Let him keep doing what he's doing, and now Rojas can go play shortstop for them. But I think good move for the Marlins to go get Amaya. I do like that.
Yeah. Quick synopsis on Amaya. What do you like about him?
Bat to ball. Marlins have too many guys that whiff. So I just like them having a middle infielder that puts bat on ball pretty well. Already reached AAA last season, so pretty close to the big leagues. I think could hit for a little bit of power. So they just need guys that can make an impact, who they can't mess up hit-wise, because we know that the Marlins can't develop hitters. And I think this is a guy that's pretty developed offensively. So he's never going to be a superstar, but they just need guys. And I think this is somebody that could be a big league regular.
And they didn't trade a superstar. They traded Miguel Rojas at the end of the day.
Who they wanted out.
And hopefully, could this guy be a younger Miguel Rojas? So you just got more years of control for a different version of him.
Exactly. So I'm in.
Marlins made one more move, signing Johnny Cueto to a 1-year deal, which I thought was very telling. Less about, the Marlins got Johnny Cueto, and more, well, they already had a bunch of starting pitchers, so could a trade be on the horizon? What was your first reaction?
That exactly, right? I'm imagining you're calling Johnny Cueto, hey, Marlins here. We want you to come, pitch for us. Well, he's going to say, okay, well, how much am I going to pitch? Right. I imagine and this is no intel, obviously. This is just, I'm imagining they had to tell him like, hey, we're going to move some arms. I can assure you, you're going to get some more run than you think. Also, if you're the Marlins, you're not signing a guy for $8.5 million, especially the Marlins, if he's not throwing 150 innings for you, right? Like health is the only thing here. I think the plan is that's your 5 starter and he's eating innings, right? Like that is the plan. Otherwise, that's a lot of money for the Marlins. Like that to me was very telling, because that tells me he's got one of the 5 spots in the rotation and somebody's headed out of town. I definitely expect that. And now I think it really kind of heats up the starting pitching trade market, which is why we've talked more about the Marlins in the last 2 episodes. And I think we did in the last 2 months, which is really fun for me. But, I think, like you said, it kind of puts the writing on the wall, because right now you got Sandy, you got Edward Cabrera, you got Trevor Rogers, you got Jesus Luzardo, you got Pablo Lopez, you've got Braxton Garrett, who looked good last year.
I like
you have so many arms in the fold here that they've got to move somebody.
Even if it's a Braxton Garrett, like it might not be the sexy move that everybody's waiting for, but they need to move an arm. They have 7 starting pitchers right now, and it's always good to have depth. But when you have no semblance of an offense, like Sandy Alcantara won the Cy Young unanimously, and they won 68 games. Like, you need an offense. They were third to last in runs scored in Major League Baseball. Third to last. Like, you have to trade from that level, because also they still have the ghost of Sixto Sanchez. They have Jake Eater in the minors. I know these guys are banged up, but they have the starting.
Jake Eater will be ready
coming up the pipe. Like, it's not like Yuri Perez. Like, they have so many starting pitchers in the minor leagues and in the rotation right now that they have to trade from that level of strength. I wonder if teams are going to look at them and say, you need to trade starters, so you're not going to get the best deal. I don't know. I don't know how that's the reason
why we haven't seen anything yet. And also don't forget they got Max Meyer coming back in a year too. So like, even if the rotation is a little bit thinner than you hoped, you're going to have him coming back as well. So I do think teams are kind of like, we know you need the offense. We're not just going to, give you what you want. We'll see if somebody else is willing to. And so far, nobody's really done it yet. So I wonder if this was the first domino, and see if maybe this makes them a little bit more willing to package other prospects, now that they have a pretty solid middle infield guy that I think probably slides right into their top 10, which is pretty crazy, but slides right into their top 10 and was probably in the 20 range for the Dodgers, which, by the way, the Dodgers top prospect list, I can remove him now. Dodgers top prospect list is out now. When you're listening to this episode, I just finished that. So I will have already edited Jacob Amaya out of the names to watch category, which is where he was for that Dodger system.
Which is a loaded system. Last deal, Nelson Cruz, 1 year, $1 million. He's going to coach in the World Baseball Classic. He is going to try and hit, and he said that he wanted to take less money in order for a chance to win a World Series. And while I said the Padres and their win total at 93.5 may not be the best bet to go over, that doesn't mean they're not a dangerous opponent when we get into the playoffs. And that's what the Padres are. They got the 3 horses at the top. They have an incredibly loaded offense, and they have bullpen guys who are locked down. They don't have the depth, but they have in the playoffs the guys you can ride. So do you think that, I don't know, what's the question here with Nelson Cruz? Do you think it was a good idea? Sure. Why not? We're just talking.
It's $1 million, right? Like, screw it. Sure. Right. Like, this is one of those where it's kind of nothing to lose. I like him as a vet there, though. Right. Like, he's by all accounts, a great clubhouse guy. This is a team that has a lot of big personalities. We've talked about that. Just being a mentor to some of those guys, like a Tatis, to some of the other dudes, because Machado has become, that vet and that leader in the clubhouse, but he could probably use some help. So I like Nelson Cruz there. I also think he's a good hedge to Matt Carpenter. Like, if Matt Carpenter can't rediscover or duplicate what he did last year, which was, I think off the top of my head, like a 714 slugging or something like that. Like, if he can't duplicate that, or even just be close to that, which was really absurd to see. But if he can't be that power left-handed bat, then you're probably going to need another bench slash DH option. And Cruz can be that. At $1 million, if he's sitting on your bench, who cares? You roll that guy out as a pinch hitter a lot in the ninth inning. He's not blinking at the big moments. And if somebody gets hurt, he can fill in the DH role. That's the crazy thing is he can really only fill in one spot. But you know what? You're getting another coach. You're getting another coach. And at the same time, he wasn't a complete disaster last year. He wasn't good. He was a 651 OPS guy. But if he can just crush lefties and, do a good job in the clubhouse for $1 million, I'm in. I hope he hits some milestones. I was looking, he's not too close to anything too notable, but 460 homers is a nice round number. He's at 459. We'll see if he can add on to any of those totals. Over 2,000 career hits, man. I mean, this guy's had a phenomenal career. I know he tested positive for PEDs. Who didn't? But this guy had a phenomenal career, man. And I'd like to see him go out with, some fun in the postseason. I hope we get like an iconic 49-year-old Nelson Cruz postseason home run for the Padres this year. I would love to see that, but it gets to go out with a little bit more of a bang than winning 10 games with the Washington Nationals.
You never know. We saw Albert Pujols against lefties. Maybe Nelson Cruz can be that for the San Diego Padres.
Like, would it surprise you? He's Nelson freaking Cruz.
Not at all. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think 475. That home run mark, he's at 459. That's 16 home runs. That's a decent chunk, but would we be surprised? I wouldn't be. So that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. Arms rocking the Just Baseball long sleeve. And the part about the Just Baseball long sleeve that is important is on our Twitter right now, we're doing a giveaway where we're giving away a Topps Chrome blaster box. I said it right, correct?
Yes, you actually did. Very proud.
Amazing. The Topps Chrome blaster box with a Just Baseball athletic long sleeve tee. So go make sure you follow our Twitter. It is in the episode description. Again, don't forget, if you want to download Prize Picks and tail these season-long player props with us that we're going to be cooking up this entire offseason, talking about on the Just Baseball Show, talking about it on Not Gambling Advice, on the TikTok, make sure you download it. It's in the episode description. You just click the link. Or if you're not clicking the link, just download the Prize Picks. When it gives you a promo code, use Just Baseball or code Just Gridiron. So that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. We'll be back tomorrow where I'm bringing in some hypotheticals that I want to ask Arm and Jack about. Then the next Friday, Arm's going to ask us some questions. We have World Baseball Classic content coming. We have, of course, our top 10s at every position coming. Tons of content coming over here at Just Baseball and on justbaseball.com. And with that, thank you, everybody.